Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are premiering. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Now, usually at this point, I'd actually introduce all of my Patreons and thank them very much for my support, but that's not actually loaded on the screen as yet, so there's a reason for that, which I'll go to in a moment and explain in full. So, whilst preparing for the show today, and by preparing I mean thinking about what the show was going to be about, because we've just had a weekend, it's a Monday for those of you who are watching this as a member, so I might as well do a plug for that. You can actually have the after show and uncut show immediately if you are a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, so it goes out as soon as the recording's finished. So this is at this stage on a Monday, appealing only to the members who are the only people who get to hear this at this stage. However, if you're hearing it, whatever it is, 36 hours later on the Nathan Oakley channel, which is the second channel, so I might as well plug that as well. Subscribe today to Nathan Oakley, where you do get to see the uncut and after shows, but just a little bit later than the members do. Anyway, that all aside, I've typically got everything set up when I do these shows, and I wanted to, or I've never really had an excuse to sort of show why and how I set up the show. Along with that, I wanted to go through an idea that I'd had, so I'm going to hopefully do a bit of multitasking and tell you about my little idea, which only came to me today whilst watching another YouTuber. So I'll explain hopefully both of those two things, maybe not exactly at the same time, as I'm not exactly that great at multitasking, but nevertheless, here we go. So this, as you can probably see right now, is my projection screen, which is what I use to monitor everything on the show. So I simultaneously also broadcast 1/4 of this 4K display to the audience, which is the top corner, which you can see when it goes like this. So obviously for this to actually have some content, I need to actually put something on there, which takes a little bit of time to set up each day. So that's what I'm going to do now as I'm talking to you about my idea. So my general idea was to approach more people about this subject. Now, it's unreasonable to actually just start attacking people who happen to mention that the Earth is a sphere for the sake of argument. Most normies are completely unaware that they are in a heliocentric worldview. So to just say, you're telling people this makes you a shill. Now, the reason I've thought about doing this, or the reason I want to do this, is because of a revelation that occurred to me on the show in the last couple of months, which is to say, the ideas of heliocentrism aren't being propagated by a they. In other words, there's a sort of an idea that comes to people when they first come to this subject. Certainly it was prevalent back in 2014 when I first came to the subject, that you have got to sort out and find the they that have lied to you about this particular subject. Well, as I'm going along, show you what I'm doing here. So let's just show you this. The full screen. Let's just do it on OBS. So I'm just setting up my chat feed, which will run down the side of this 1/4 of the screen. The other thing I need to do is set up my monitoring for the computer, which often will overheat. So I also load a piece of software called Cam, which anybody who's into PCs may be familiar with. So that will load at the bottom of the screen, just so I can keep an eye on the temps. Anyway, I'll carry on. So, as I said, I can't necessarily just go to random YouTuber and start telling them that they're a shill for this nonsense on account of the fact that that doesn't seem reasonable. And into my lap plops a YouTuber who is debunking the lies of people who claim their products have everything that you could ever want from a product, and often they're not, as they are advertised. So this particular YouTuber, whose name is Thunderfoot, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, I've only been watching him today, he described another YouTuber, this will all make sense in a minute, called Unbox Therapy, and if you're unaware of who he is, he's the guy that sort of made prevalent the bend gate back when the iPhone 6 first came out by snapping one in half and showing how easily it would flex. Anyway, he called this guy, and I quote, the most vapid shill on YouTube. And he was detailing I think he was detailing an air purifier at the time or something like that. Anyway, this guy basically, as I say, claimed to be a scientist, in quotes. He called himself a scientist and goes around with his mathematics debunking people's claims, and will often show practical demonstrations. Now, there's no science on his channel as far as I can ascertain. I've not looked thoroughly, but I've looked, and from what I can ascertain, there's no science being done. But he definitely claims to be a scientist. And I think his heart's in the right place too, so I think he'll be a reasonable chappie, shall we say, this Thunderfoot guy. However, he is definitely on the offensive about people's just so stories about their products that they claim that they can sell you and fulfill every desire that you could ever want in the area that they're advertising you about. And obviously that simply isn't the case. So he's on the offensive to these guys, calling them shills, because they're shilling for a certain product. Now, often in his videos, Thunderfoot, he will talk about the heliocentric religion. And he'll talk about it in a vein that is exactly the same as everyone else has been exposed to in regards to the heliocentric religion, which is to say, he punts it with the just so stories that are given to him by the priests of heliocentrism. There's no other way of putting it. Now, given that I've only left him a couple of cursory comments on these videos pointing a few of these details out, to me, he seems like the perfect candidate to actually expose his misapprehensions, shall we call them, about the just so stories he's punting without any scientific validity. So that's kind of my thoughts on Thunderfoot and what exactly it is that he does that relates to what I do when he talks about space and is simultaneously debunking claims of nonsense. Now, frustrating that this may be for me as a flat earther, when I debunk the nonsense just so stories of heliocentrism, I'm open to ridicule for that. I'll be called a shill for exposing stuff using the scientific method and natural law. Now, while this guy is not necessarily propping up his debunkings of each particular given item with the heliocentric worldview, he is definitely punting it. So, just whether or not this guy likes it, he's definitely punting the heliocentric worldview. And for that reason alone, it's like, well, you're selling something, mate. You're selling the world on a religion that's been punted to you by your priests. And, as much as you don't maybe appreciate that you're selling something when you're telling people about gas pressure and showing the world and pointing out where the nearest atmosphere is in a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, whilst telling people how a condenser dryer that's supposed to be using vacuum power to dry clothes isn't. Your comparisons need to be sharpened up. And I'm going to be the one to point out this to this guy. Why not? He's ultimately just a Joe Normie, as far as I can tell. Yes, he claims to be a scientist. Yes, he's debunking people. But given that he's on the offensive, I see him as a prime candidate to have some of his errors in regards to the religious worldview of heliocentrism pointed out to him. So that was just something that I wanted to share with initially my members, and eventually, in a couple of days' time, my Nathan Oakley subscribers on the second channel. That's right, get there in the end. So yeah, that's basically it. I just wanted to share with you my ideas and views while I set up for the live show, and indeed for what would normally be the Uncut and After show. Now, for obvious reasons, the Uncut and After show is going to be cut slightly short. I'll just show what I'm doing again. So now I've run out of things to talk about with Thunderfoot, I can actually concentrate on setting up the show. So what I'm doing here is just basically picking out the backgrounders video. So the backgrounders video is purely there to stop anybody who manages to make their way onto the G Plus panel from presenting something that perhaps they shouldn't. So typically you'll see a background video when I'm doing the show, so that it's a throwback to when I used to give out the Google Hangouts key to the public. So I don't do that anymore, but nevertheless, there is still a slim possibility that somebody could come into the Google Hangouts and actually take over the stream, play something that they shouldn't, all that kind of stuff, which I definitely don't want them to do. So what am I doing here? Let's get rid of this particular box. So I was in Flat Earth 24/7 Discord, and in there was Right the Hand telling me that I don't do any work. That's partially why I've done this today, showing you just how much work actually is involved in setting up a flat earth debate. And it's not a small or insignificant amount of work, I'll have you know. It's built up over time, lots and lots and lots of little details. Before I even started the stream, obviously I had to restart the PC. I had to, what else did I have to do? Load up the sound card, change the sound card settings to the settings that are set up for my desk. Load up my desk, which I'll show you now, and get that running with a mic and OBS so that I could start recording to show you how I set up. In other words, even just setting up to set up takes some setting up. Anyway, so let's just restart this. You'll hear me go silent for a minute. Go. Anyway, so that's going to tell you about my setup. I keep an eye down here on the super chats. However, because of the way I've got my screen scaled, you can probably just tell from looking at it like this, it doesn't fit on the screen. So if by the time I've got to about the third super chat, I can't read it anymore, and I have to read it off this chat up here, and it's just way too small because it's 1/4 of a 4K screen. It looks nice and juicy and big to you, but for me, it's like that's what I'm seeing at about, I don't know how far I am, 18 feet away from the screen, something like that. Anyway, so this text on this screen is tiny. Let's just put it on the screen that you guys see, so you can see it's exploded for you. So when I'm struggling to read something off the super chat and you're like, my God, is this guy dyslexic? Well, number one, yeah, I am. Number two, it's so far away, it's really difficult to actually read it off the screen. Anyway, let's get this set up a little bit more pretty. So all of these little tweaks are probably, that's the other reason I've done this stream. There's probably going to be someone out there that says there is a more efficient way of doing this, and I'm sure there is. However, this is just how I've got used to doing it. Load up Discord next. So you can probably see as the time progresses that it's definitely not a short process. Now this recording at this stage, because of the way Discord works, might end up getting cut short and being a standalone show, because it might be that Discord hasn't lined up correctly with OBS. If you load it before, it works fine. If you load it after, as I'm obviously having to do this stream, then that doesn't necessarily work very well. Let's just see if this works. Hello, can you hear me in Discord? Mike, don't I? Hello, Neil. Can you hear me?
Yes, coming in quite clear.
Excellent. I started the recording a little bit. I was about to say stream. Started the recording a little bit early just so I could show people the sort of nature of setting up for a show. Pretty tedious, but once in a while I like to do behind the scenes.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of that.
You didn't hear me?
Not any of that. I just heard you just now when you came in.
Is that a problem with your end or my end? Oh, God. This is proper pre-show stuff now. We're properly into the pre-show. I haven't even fully set up yet. Is Despite Everything off mute? Is he there? Are you there, Despite Everything? Clearly not. Okay, well, I'll have to chat to you. Unfortunately, normally at this point, Neil, I'd be 90% set up.
I'm here.
Oh, you are? Brilliant. Hopefully you can chat to Neil just while I set up the last few things.
Fine. Were you talking before, Despite Everything? Because I couldn't hear you. Oh, okay, because I was saying hello to you and John. I saw that you were green, but I wasn't hearing you. Yeah, 24/7. They were not 24/7. I heard something with Chemo this morning on his show. They were saying how they got the distance to the sun through triangulation, and how Red's rhetoric triangulated the ISS. But I think there has to be some sort of assumption there. I don't know.
Yeah,
The radius of Earth.
Yeah. You're going to calculate the distance to the sun, and you're going to apply Kepler's third law, or triangulate with anything. You're going to start with the assumption that you've already got a 93 million mile sun. Well, where have you got that assumption? Well, you've got that assumption by applying Kepler's law, the third law of interplanetary motion, to an assumption that Venus has the same size as the radius that's assumed for Earth. That's quite a lot of assumptions right there. That's quite a long string of assumptions. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree, but they were saying that they were doing it with one person somewhere, another person somewhere in a great distance. But where's that third thing to make the triangle?
It's a sun.
Well, don't they bend it anyway? They bend it to the presupposed R value. I'm going to stop getting involved in this conversation on account of the fact that I don't know the details and I'm trying to do something else. Hello, 10th man. Oh, I've not got his line open.
Interesting segue.
Say again.
That was an interesting segue.
Segue from what to what?
But I just came in, I heard bending, and then you're saying you're not going to talk about it.
No, I started the show with only OBS and my sound desk just so I could give the audience a general impression of what it takes to set up, and I'm still actually not fully set up, so I've not done... let's just go back to my little book to tell me what I've got to set up. So I've got to set up my members for Nathan Oakley 1980, my Patreon, who I'll shout out now in a second when there's a small silence, my live stream dashboard on the second screen, so that if I do get a super chat that falls off the screen, I can actually read it on the screen that's closer to me. Show this. Hold on, as I'm doing this, I might as well see if I can show this to the audience. More screens. Gordon webcam. Me and webcam. There we go. Yeah, hey. So here we go. This is my second screen. So this has got, obviously, can you see my mouse? Yes, you can. This has got OBS on it. This has also got my channel members for Nathan Oakley 1980. Now, should I need to shout them out? The Patreons, which get shouted out on this stream, on the Uncut and After Show stream at the beginning. Also the live stream with super chats and the live stream running on a screen that I can actually read it from, as opposed to the big screen, which is, where's that gone? Over here. So I've got those two screens running. As you can probably see, everything's full. There's no space left, literally none. I'm sure there's a couple more programs that I've forgotten, which will probably cause me a problem during the show. But there you go. That's that. Just now I've done it. I've pretty much concluded me describing how I set up the show, so I can actually finish off setting it for real, and then hopefully, without running out of time, we'll get to the live show with everything being tickety-boo.
Yeah, so you have to set up first.
No, I know you experienced me setting up, but you don't, because even before I've sent you the link, everything's pretty much set up. It's only the stuff that like I say, I will get to once I've done the other things, like leveling everyone up and all that kind of stuff. But I can't even start the recording before I've got 2 or 3 pieces of software running, and then once they're running, in this example, I've then got to load 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 other things. 14 if you include the background video.
No, I got you. I mean, you got most of it set up, and then when you get on, there's just a few checks, and then this conversation came up, and you still have to process the few checks before the show starts.
Yeah, exactly. What was the other thing? I also I don't normally get... That's not enough content to do on my own normally, so I wouldn't normally open the show and say, this is how I set up the show. I've done it before for Patreons. So on Patreon, there's various... Normally when something goes wrong, I'll say, hey, this is what I've done to sort out my PC overheating, and it's a bit of a behind the scenes. But those things tend to make it to the mainstream audience because I frankly don't think they'd be that interested. Whereas me discussing a YouTuber that I've come across recently that's got an interesting debunking element to his channel and also talks about heliocentrism, I think is worthy to talk about while I'm setting up, if I could multitask, which I can't. So it ended up being separate anyway. But you know what I'm getting at. It's not worthy of one dedicated pre-show setup on my own.
Trust me, I know. I got a cooking channel. I got to do a bunch of things at the same time to make the show work right.
Right. Hey, Brian. So can I tell you about the other subject, then, given that I've now pretty much set up? Hey, Brian.
Is there a delay, Brian?
Hey, yeah, I'm about to say hello twice, but I don't think it's coming through. Hey, how are you? How are things? Sorry.
No, you're coming through. Yeah. You're coming through.
Okay. It's coming through okay now.
Yeah. So what was that you were going to talk about, Nathan?
Yeah, just the YouTuber that I came across. So this guy's called Thunderfoot, and he essentially debunks people's outrageous claims about products that they've produced or funded on Kickstarter or whatever. And I've watched a few of his videos, and yeah, he talks about heliocentrism, but that didn't leave him as an open target until he described Unbox Therapy as, quote, the most vapious shill on YouTube. And I'm like, right, okay, now this all makes sense. You're debunking people who make up stories about stuff that they're either reviewing or producing, and you're exposing them. But you're also telling them about how gas pressure works, calling yourself a scientist when you do maths, and purveying this idea that we live on a sphere with gas pressure in a vacuum. He's even got pictures of it. So I thought, okay, well, you're out there as a seemingly decent chap debunking nonsense, and so am I. Now, without getting into the moans about, well, you get held up and praised, 900,000 subscribers, I get called a shill and ridiculed for being a flat earther, even though we're essentially doing the same thing, exposing it. I just do it better than he does because I don't claim science where there isn't any. He does. But that's excused by the masses because they're all programmed with this to believe the sky is a vacuum. But when you're out there overtly and aggressively debunking other people's claims, as far as I'm concerned, that leaves you as a fair target for claims you've made that are incorrect, in this case about heliocentrism. So therefore, my idea to get this idea, well, just the nature of reality in reality, that across to a more mainstream audience requires somebody, or in this case a YouTuber, that can be focused on. So in the past, it's just been whoever has made a YouTube video. It doesn't matter what they are. Let's say it's engineering explained. He does videos about how engines work, and that's his thing, right? But then he makes a video about flat Earth. So suddenly, because of his overt aggression towards the subject matter, he becomes a target for us to respond to, not proactively, reactively. Well, generally, because of the revelation I've had in the last couple of months, who is the they? Who is punting the lie of this globe? Who's they? Anybody? Anybody at all?
Yes. There's all the people who parrot what they hear as truth without taking a stand and finding out for sure. So they is everybody.
Precisely. So they is everybody, but everybody isn't fair game just because they've been brainwashed. That would be unreasonable. But you are fair game if you're of the type of ilk that debunks other people based purely on their just so stories, as Thunderfoot does. So he's like a route in to exposing somebody who has he's got an association to the topic. He talks about the sky vacuum. So as far as I'm concerned, it's like, well, you're fair game, you're punting this nonsense. And although it's only recently that I've realised this, and we on the show collectively have realised this, the they is absolutely anybody who parrots this nonsense as a just so story without any scientific validity. And in this case, that's Thunderfoot.
One of many.
One of millions, billions of people who do exactly the same thing. But he overtly attacks people as shills for making up just so stories about a hairdryer or a piece of electronics or a telescope.
Yeah, even more so him, because his show topic is about that. And then he's doing it.
Exactly. So that's like, when you think, who can you take this to? Unless they're like Engineering Explained and making a video about the subject, it seems unreasonable to just go and attack random Joe who happens to mention the sky vacuum in his story about something else. But if your story about something else is debunking how people shouldn't be making up stories, that makes you fair game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole heliocentric thing was suggested a long time ago, and people now are actually indoctrinating themselves over the past God knows how many decades. People keep on they keep on trying to indoctrinate other people, and then those people keep on trying to indoctrinate themselves. It's an internal thing. It's like a virus inside. There's no point in pointing to a lot of people, Freemasons or whoever else. Those kind of people, they're laughing.
Yeah,
people do it to themselves.
I think you got a good point there, Nathan and Brian, because when I went and hit space movies, say on Amazon Prime, man, you can't believe all these movies I'd never even heard of that deal with the heliocentric narrative. And you just scroll through the titles and you say, well, people got to be watching this, and just to kill time. And then when they watch it, they parrot it because they say, well, obviously there's space and there's NASA, there's all these things. So they just, like the media through the news, is brainwashing the masses on many subjects, some currently going on. These movies do the same thing.
Exactly, but that's been covered though. In terms of the what's it called? No, subliminal messaging. There you go. Subliminal programming. the subtle dropping in of globes here, there, and everywhere, and all that sort of stuff. That's subliminal. You don't overtly recognise that there's a globe behind some dude in some film. It's just a prop, right? Well, no, it's not. It's subliminally programming you into a constant understanding and acceptance that you're standing on a sphere flying through a vacuum. Now, you don't realise that. It's subliminal. But that's been covered. Russian Vids does an exceptionally good job of going through the programming that is planted into dozens and dozens and dozens of movies. He exposes it all day long. Good job he does too. Loads of other people, not just Russian Vids. There's loads of people who do that sort of thing. I've done
my
it.
son denies that.
Go on.
I said my son denies that subliminal message. He says it's not. It doesn't work.
Oh yeah. Do you want a recommendation? A guy called Nathan Bell. Nathan Bell is the guy's name. Can you turn your speakers down, please, Mike? Mike? Neil? Calling you Mike. It's because you say Neil check. Anyway, the YouTuber's called Nathan Bell, and his channel is called Reality in Truth, all one word. And the video is called The Great Subliminal Message Deception. And it's a hour-long documentary that he has put together, which utilises the handbook on how to put subliminal messaging into advertising, for example. It tells you how to do it step by step as a little guide. So, it definitely is being done. Now, the overt 1970s version that he's managed to get hold of to show you isn't going to be the current way of doing it. However, the principles are pretty much the same, and the fact that they're not necessarily as overt as they were in the 1970s doesn't change the fact that they're being used every single day in far more complicated ways than he even exposes. But he exposes the basics. Well worth checking out. Nathan Bell, Reality in Truth is the YouTube channel, and it's The Great Subliminal Message Deception.
I
will
was
recommend
talking
it to
to.
him.
Go on.
Yeah, it's what I was studying this 10 years ago, and from there I went on to psychopathy, and then from there to flat Earth. Now, I didn't really have any what I would call conspiracy background, because subliminal messaging isn't conspiratorial.
No, it's marketing.
Yeah, exactly. It's marketing. Oh, you took the words out of my mouth. I forget you're in sales sometimes. Yeah, exactly. It's marketing. Precisely. The sex sale, the death sale. It's just marketing.
I was listening to Chemo's show there, the one he posted up there while I was doing stuff, and the level of self-indoctrination amongst the ball side in there is phenomenal in that particular show. The one he posted up today on Master B. It's like they're so bad that actually Dawn Treader is actually putting them straight on their bad glow proofs. That's how bad they are. Dawn Treader is actually in a opposition with them. They just don't have a clue. I mean, their glow proofs, they don't understand anything. They're speaking a bit about as if the Black Swan is debunked. This kind of nonsense. They've not given any evidence for anything. They're making claims or their support. It's just constantly, and when they ask one of the flat earthers a question, it's always some stupid loaded question. And before the flat earther gets to even say anything, they're already answering for them and misrepresenting them. This is what's going on. It's like, don't tell us it's not a globe. We can't handle that. We can't take it. We must do a circle of indoctrination to ourselves. This kind of thing. That's it, isn't it? Don't tell us that. Please, don't tell us that. Don't tell me that's happening.
Just so you know,
They
10th man,
contradict
while you're off
themselves so
mute.
much.
Just so you know, 10th
sorry.
man, while you're off mute, you're causing all sorts of audio horribleness. Just so you know.
I apologize.
I'm not saying go on mute now, because obviously you want to talk, but just so you know.
I was off. I went on mute, and I said, I got to pipe in. Then when I came in, I rustled and made a bunch of noise.
No worries. Just so you know.
Yeah, we were
Nathan
debating.
picks up everything. You don't miss anything.
That's right. We were debating a guy named Wardy, Wardy, on MIUK the other day. And I was asking about the physical geometric horizon. You got to have one if you're on the globe. went through the whole argument. Of course, just like Brian says, don't tell me, this whole subset of feelings was behind everything he said. And he said something I never heard until then. He said the geometric horizon is physical and it does exist. It's just underwater. At that 1.22 mile, it's underwater over there.
Yeah, these people are really struggling with what a horizon is. And it's a pretty basic thing, right?
It gets better. He even defined the horizon where the sky meets the land or the sea. And then he said it's underwater.
Oh, God. Denial's a beautiful thing. But on the other hand, we are definitely experiencing people express their cognitive pain. So on the one hand, it is quite funny, but...
Yeah, but the denial is underwater. It's over there in Egypt.
Denial! Boom, boom!
Early, got it.
Can I make a shout out to the Freemasons? I'd like to shout out that we need some help because the level of stupid we're dealing with on the ball side is so phenomenal that we need you to put out some proofs that you already know about. Put out some stuff on TV or something for us to help us along, because I know you're on hashtag same team. So they're all flat earthers. So the Freemasons, please help us out, because it's getting ridiculous. It's not fair that we have stress in our lives because these people are unbelievably thick.
Oh my gosh, Brian, you're calling out for Freemasons to help out the ballers?
Oh, help us out. Help us out. I want them to put out some
they don't need to help
proofs.
us out. They need to help out the ballers.
Oh, no, we don't deserve all this stress, Tent. We're after
I don't have any stress.
Now. Well, I have stress from it. I'm annoyed by the whole thing. There's too much. There's too many ballers out there saying too many stupid things. That we have to go over the same argument too many times. I want the Freemasons to throw a spanner in the works. I want them to throw a spanner in the works. I want to see the ballers panicking.
Let me help you with your pre-assumed stress. When they say flat is curved and curved is flat, just laugh.
Yeah, but the problem is there's only when I say stress, I'm having a joke about that, right? I'm not really
of course
stressed,
you are,
but just having a laugh. But these people are they are so stuck in the same narrative, and they continually go back to the same circle of arguments. They go back to an argument they had 2 years ago. They go back to it now, when the argument they have now is after being completely destroyed.
Well,
and
that's
in 2
your
years'
fault.
time, they're going to try and come back up with that argument again. But they keep on going back to, not me personally, I just listen to it going on all the time.
Listen.
They'll bring
Brian,
back up old arguments
did you hear
all the time.
Listen, with all due
this
respect,
morning?
that's your fault. That's our fault when we keep talking to these dummies after they've proven themselves to be dummies.
Yeah, but they went back to why would they be lying to us?
No, but you don't understand.
But I want the Freemasons to throw a spanner in the works. They can do it. They have, they have the power. I want them to do it. This is my call. Come on, lads, throw a spanner in the works. Give the Globe or something to panic about. Because they're surely getting bored of listening to us taking these people apart.
All religions have a priesthood.
Say that again.
Sorry.
I said all religions have a priesthood. But they're the guilty ones, I would think.
Yeah, I was accused of Nathan and QE being my priest.
Well, what are they trying to say? That you can't learn something from somebody?
This topic would be a lot easier to discuss if they weren't claiming they were going to a second law of thermodynamics violation all the time.
So QE informs us what the second law of thermodynamics is. You can go check it anywhere. He's got the citations. And then they're saying that we're being fooled.
I'm saying that NASA is claiming to go to this second law of thermodynamics violation, and it makes it difficult for people to see that it's a lie.
But
That's
that
true.
lies the key. That's why you have to show it to them so they can see that it's a lie. But you're trying to convert everybody.
They're in a religious worldview. They don't want to see it.
I know, but you don't try to convert anybody. Just proclaim what you know to be true.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm trying, but their position is a constant contradiction. I mean, you can't make sense of it.
That's why we're winning.
So
that's why we're winning. That's what I want. I wouldn't want to be contradicting myself and thinking I'm winning when I'm not. I like it when they contradict themselves and say stupid things. That's why we're winning.
But you have to walk all the way through the argument with people just about before they realize they're even contradicting themselves. If you want to help somebody see the truth, it is really difficult.
Look, that's why you don't put notches on your belt. Just proclaim it and move on to the next person. The minute they become argumentative and say flat is curved, vice versa a few times, I'm done with them. I really don't care to talk to those people anymore.
Well, the whole Einstein relativity thing is flat is curved and curved is flat, and the geodesics moving at angles. I mean, they believe that's science.
No, that's calculations and math. That's not science. I think the time to start to show.
But yeah, my whole point was that, this would all be a lot simpler if there weren't people lying to the public and claiming they were going to a second law of thermodynamics violation.
That's to our benefit when they do that, because then we can point it out.
Hello.
No, because you're working on a localized scale. They have the media pronouncing it. It's not the same.
I like a good.
Hey, Alan.
Hello. Hey, Brian. Hey, 10th man. Nathan.
Hey.
When are we starting?
Right now, probably. How was your weekend, Arvin?
It was really good, actually.
Good.
I tapped into some new series and yeah, everything is all right, I guess.
Wonderful.
And you?
Good. Father's Day here in the States as well as everywhere, I think. And did a great meal, put it on the cooking channel, and it was surf and turf.
All right. I don't know. I feel stupid. I completely forgot about Father's Day. I tried to call my dad, but he didn't pick up.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it's not. I'm not gonna worry about it. Yo, it's taking so long, Nathan.
I know. Maybe he's having a few technical, or maybe he's there and we're not there.
I'm nearly there.
Okay.
Don't take over our winning habits, Nathan.
Not a debate.
I missed all of that. Say that again.
Something about Arwinian habits.
Yes, don't take over our winning habits. Like regularly being 5 minutes late or early. That kind of thing.
Well, when we start, Bev bought Dr. Becky's book. And he sent me a few pages, so I posted in Master B.
He cut out the pages and mailed them to you, did he?
Just the preface.
Okay. Well, he cut out the preface?
No, he took pictures of it.
Oh, okay.
You should make it sound like a cake or something. Give me a slice of that preface.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, then hit that join button if you're watching on a PC. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of appreciation and thanks to Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Alistair Main, Blue Ridge Ranger, Burn Fat Till My Stomach is as Flat as the Earth, Chris Hillman, Dank, Dave Reckier Gafford, David Robinson, David Wayne Foster, Dick Earth Skeptic, Edwin Johnson, Owen Jennisons, Felix Hung, Fireball X, Godrockin, Henrik86, Joshua Balsimo, Kirsten Smith, Liam Ledrick, Life is Short, Maria Neelands, Missouri Bear, Muted, NA Nitralist, Nathan Thompson, Naibai, Rob H, Skeptic936, Steve ALM, Texas Mike, theflatearthchannel.com, The Real Gabster, Tina Baker, Unbelievable Productions, and Windrider. So massive shout out, thanks and appreciation to all of you who support me on Patreon. Now, we are joined by a whole bunch of people in Discord, including Brian, Arwin, and 10th Man in G+. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning,
Hello,
everybody.
Good afternoon.
One from Discord.
Hello, good to have you all of Discord. So, any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Not from any seashore from Earth.
I second that.
Wouldn't that be the dip angle?
Depends who you ask.
I said, wouldn't that be the dip angle that they claim is a physical edge?
Yeah, they claimed they measured a dip angle to acquire the R value, and the dip angle was based on a 90-degree from your position up atop a mountain in the case of Alberuni, down to the claim to be physical sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. And with that dip angle measurement, despite the fact it's currently being obfuscated and we're told that it's only measuring to what the fundies in the trench call the apparent horizon. Now that's completely redundant. All horizons are apparent by definition. However, they've separated out the geometric horizon and the apparent horizon so that they can claim that you don't see the geometric horizon, we only see the apparent horizon, even though Alberuni's claimed to have measured to it. That's a massive problem for them, not a massive problem for us. It just proves that they can never measure the geometric horizon. They even tell us it only exists in the maths now.
Yeah, but for the consistent dip angle, that completely craps on the horizon being in any way related to geometry.
Correct, but they're claiming that though, aren't they? Very much so.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it whenever they did claim that it was just apparent. It was like you just threw the whole toy away because you lost.
Yeah, calling it apparent is just a weaselly way of getting around the fact that you can't see a geometric horizon. Well, apparent's kind of harmless if it spills into actual rhetoric, because all horizons are apparent. So the moment there's not one of us around to say, well, your horizon's supposed to be a geometric physical sphere edge, they can just say, yeah, we're measuring the apparent horizon, which is geometric in this example. Even though at trench level, they're saying, well, to get around the fact you've got this black swan that proves it can't be geometric, we'll just agree with you. It can't be geometric. Well, then you can't do geometry. But they fail to recognise that that's the end of their argument.
When they say dip angle, I'm sorry, am I talking over someone?
You were talking. It's not a hallucination, 10th Man. It's all good. You're okay.
Okay. I see 10th Man talking. All right. When Alberuni factored in the dip angle, he was looking at the geometric horizon, supposedly. But then we find out he's really looking at the apparent horizon. All right. And then somewhere in between him and the apparent horizon is supposed to be this geometric horizon that no one could ever see. So how in the world can he measure the radius of the Earth if you can never see the geometric horizon and all you see is the apparent horizon, which is where the sky seems to meet the water if you're looking at the ocean. And it keeps moving as you get closer to it. So it's not a real place. It's just a Jedi mind trick.
But to answer your question, although it was rhetorical, you can't. To do geometry or to measure an R value of a geometric claim to be sphere Earth, you're going to need to see a physical geometric sphere edge for your horizon so you can draw a straight line tangent to that point. So you're going to need to see it. You must see it. It's claimed you could see it until the Black Swan got here.
Right. So Al-Biruni said he saw the geometric horizon, and that's how the narrative was up until the Black Swan, correct?
Yeah, now that's just a massive gaping hole in the story, because he's needing a geometric horizon to derive his geometric R value from, and according to the people who argue with us, he can't see it.
Right, but these globies who are arguing with us must admit that Al-Biruni did see it if he measured it. But how come we can't see
it? He didn't. He can't. That's the end of their argument.
He geometrically uses the apparent horizon.
Well,
but
Globe
it's
surveyor Jesse Kozlowski on my channel about a week or so, 2 weeks ago, stated, I'll see if I can get this verbatim, stated in a comment that the WGS84, which is the reference, the oblate spheroid reference for all of the globe, the WGS84 is, let me see if I get this correct, I'll try not to misrepresent them, a mathematical reference model. So,
You say a mathematical reference model?
yes, I think that is verbatim for what he says. I'm trying to remember it exactly. A mathematical reference model.
Is that another way of saying they don't account for
what?
refraction?
No, it's another way of saying that they presuppose the Earth is a sphere with maths.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
in
what
the
I
same
hear.
way as they do not see a geometric horizon, but it's required to have one if you're going to do geometry. It only exists in the maths. So there's a geometric horizon in the maths.
But again, if it's in the math, then they should call it geometric thingamajig, because if it's a horizon, you should be able to see it.
Now you're talking my language.
Exactly.
Thingamajig.
Hold on, we've all ignored Brian's point. Hold
If it's a reference model, then it's a reference to what?
Hold on. Look, Brian's point's been danced over. So the surveyors follow this path. First, stand on a point on the Earth. Next, reference the WGS84 and say, where am I actually pointing in regards to a presupposed spherical Earth that I'm standing on? And then they decide that their zenith that they draw, that would be a straight line coming out the top of their head, that's actually pointing to the presupposed centre of an Earth that's spherical. And that's what the WGS84 enables them to do. So they put a little mark in the ground and say, this is where I am. This is where I am on the WGS84. This is what angle I'm pointing out into space and how my feet are pointing to the centre of the Earth. And that's where they begin. Now, when Validation Boy said every single claim to be sphere Earth proof starts with the presupposition you're on a sphere, this, the WGS84, is an elaborate version of that. It's just them begging the question. Assume you're standing on a sphere based on the WGS84. That's all it is. Right, Brian? That's your point, right?
Yeah, it's just pure pre-assumption and mathematics. What Nathan is saying there is 100% correct. That's what they're doing today with the use of GPS. But what they used previous to that was the ITRF, which is the International Terrestrial Reference Frame, which meant they put everything into Cartesian coordinates, just like GPS does. And then and this is from his own, Jesse Kozlowski's own words that he wrote into my channel. Into a comment on my channel, is that they then convert it mathematically to latitude and longitude, and it's the flattening of the WGS84 or another similar ellipsoid is converted. They convert it to the geographic latitude and longitude via the flattening, and then they turn it into the oblate spheroid. So even when they first convert it, it's converted into the flattening. It's basically converted into the AE map or something similar. And then it's turned into the oblate spheroid. The ECEF is what Nathan is talking about there, which is the current way, but they're using GPS and GNSS, where the zenith is brought to the center of a pre-assumed sphere from the very start, and then everything is put into Cartesian coordinate systems. Now,
Okay.
Cartesian coordinate systems are a box. So all the boxes must meet. The box behind that box must meet edge to edge, face to face. The box in the front must do the same, the box to the left, the box to the right, and each 4 boxes at each corner. So how do all these boxes that are all boxes and must meet and must be square and flat, how do they all go around the curve? They don't. But if you presuppose that the zenith to the center of all those boxes is going to the center of a presupposed oblate spheroid, then you can claim diverging zenith angles through mathematics.
Right, so it's a conversion process from a presupposition of an Earth that's spherical, either by way of WJS84 or ECF, which is Earth-centered, Earth-fixed, or GPS, Global Positioning System. In other words, it's all steps to presupposing you're on a sphere before you do anything. Just to assess where you're standing and what you're standing on before you do a damn thing. So it's just a way of begging the question.
Okay, so let's start with a globe. That's basically it.
Yeah, that's right, Arwin.
And then we end up with a
How
globe.
come they don't see that?
That was hard.
Yeah, we start with a globe. We do some stuff in between. People all glaze over as I tell them it because it's incredibly tedious. And at the end, when I say, and that proves the globe, people shake themselves a bit and go, oh, right, does it? They forget the fact that they've presupposed they're on a sphere to begin with because they dance past that almost immediately.
So how come
they
they
pat each
don't?
other on the back and say, brilliant, brilliant, yeah.
Go on, Nick. Go on, Neil.
How come they don't see that? I understand exactly what you're saying. Why are they not understanding?
Oh, well,
that?
Brian asked, is that not a presupposition when you use GPS? That would be Global Positioning System. What was their answer when you pointed out that GPS, by way of a rhetorical question in this example, what was their response, Brian?
Yeah. I asked 2 questions, 2 main questions. The first one was, do you pre-assume a globe, okay, or oblate spheroid? That was my first question. The second question was, what is the origin of the globe Earth radius value? From 3 surveyors, I only got an answer from one of them, and that was the main surveyor. And to the first question, do they pre-assume a globe? I got the answer, just the word no, with nothing going with it, just no. And to the question, what is the origin of the globe Earth's radius value? I got the word measurements. That was it. That's all I got. No supporting evidence, no anything. So they don't, like the other 2, Jesse Kozlowski and this other guy, I think it's Larry Scott or something, they didn't even answer. They wouldn't answer. Multiple times I asked. It's not they don't know, they don't want to know.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Any signs of axial rotation?
Nope.
You got to have a globe first.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Nothing's holding me down.
Not that I'm aware of.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Wait a minute.
First,
Net force 0. Net force 0. I want to say it.
That's fascinating, Paul. Threats, maybe? Sorry, what was that outburst all about?
Parallax.
Well, if there's no acceleration, there's no force, right? So if I'm holding my feet on the ground, there's nothing holding me here. There's no force. But there's net force 0, so there has to be acceleration upwards and downward. So that's all I want to say, because that's the Glober's answer.
Which force is cancelling out which? What forces are we talking about? Or are they talking about, Paul? I know this isn't you.
Well, a force that doesn't exist, a force that is a force. And then I saw that video I posted over the weekend where time is the cause of gravity, because time moves slower at the top of my head, or slower at the top of my head than it does at the bottom of my feet, or vice versa. I can't remember. And that's the cause of gravity. So the conceptual medium that doesn't exist
and causes
a force that doesn't exist.
Has this been validated scientifically? Has somebody varied this concept of time to scientifically validate that it causes what they're claiming is an effect we don't observe?
Of course not. It's mathematical. You have to draw a line on a graph. You draw a line on a graph, and 4 coordinate system. That's what you have to do.
What did you say?
Wait,
Sorry.
You say time is moving slower at the bottom of your feet than at the top of your head.
Yeah, I also picked up on. Did you say 4 coordinates?
Of course, it's a 4 coordinate system. You got length, breadth, and width, and time.
Time's just a concept.
See, I know. I could be standing still in the 4 coordinate system, which means I'm not going forward, left, or right. But I'm always moving through time. And time moves faster at the top of my head than it does at the bottom of my feet. And that's what's keeping me firmly planted on the ground.
Right, when you say moving, what do you mean by moving through this concept of time? Moving implies movement, does it not?
Well, I'm moving on this graph on this line coordinate system, and time is one of those lines in this graph system that we use. It's that reference frame issue again, where I'm moving through this coordinate system.
Conceptual coordinate system that's claimed to be a cause. So it's both simultaneously the cause of something and the coordinate system. Is that correct?
Exactly, you got it, Nathan. You figured it out. We do understand this. We don't. They say we don't. I think we do.
And I don't understand it. I'm trying to gain clarity here, and I'm being told I understand. What the hell's going on?
Exactly.
Hang on. So
what's going on there is the. Sorry, you go, Tent. I'll talk in a second.
No, I said so. Basically, Paul, what you're saying is your head arrives at work before your feet do.
What if you walk into work doing a cartwheel?
Well, your work is a place. See, that's a place. That's in the length, breadth, and width. But it's not, that's not time. It's a different thing. So you can't, to go to my work that's a place in space and space. But I can stand and not move anywhere and move in time.
Well, if you're moving, what does time do? And if you're not moving, what does time do in their world?
Time doesn't do anything.
And in their world.
In their world, it doesn't do anything either.
No.
They just think it does something.
What this is about.
In their world, if you come in late, you're not on time, and you get a point.
What this is about is the startings of the globe side that we deal with, starting to learn about Einstein's theory of general relativity. Because in his theory of general relativity, the higher you go in altitude, the closer you're getting to the speed of light. So that's what they're starting off with, and they're completely wrong. As Albert Einstein, in his own words, state that that gravity is caused by the curvature of space-time by matter. So that claim that time is causing gravity is not what is stated by Albert Einstein.
Just to reiterate, there is absolutely zero scientific validity being given to the assertion made by Einstein that time, a concept, can be A, travelled through, or B, bent, or C, is the cause of anything ever. It isn't, and what he says is inconsequential. Just words. No scientific validity for gravity whatsoever. Zero.
Exactly.
If only Einstein came up with the flux capacitor.
Yeah, then he could vary time to validate it in an experiment as the cause of this effect of a phenomena that nobody observes. It doesn't happen in nature. So basically, no matter what you do, even if you've got a flux capacitor, this sits outside of science. It's merely the musings of Einstein written down in mathematical terms. It does not affect our reality in the slightest.
1.21 gigawatts.
Well, it's all math. It's all math. It's all calculation. It's not anything proven.
Math isn't a cause. Math can describe only. It can't explain, and it's not the cause of anything. Indeed! Moving on.
Sorry about that.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet.
Seat of the pants.
Not ever.
Well, not yet is technically not
Guesswork?
ever either. So
Shout out to Cleary.
Well, this is a good segue.
Oh,
Can you go to Master B?
I can do, but I'm just going to do a quick shout out only because I watched this. So shout out to Cleary. He says, I flat smacked my mum. Lol. He did. And I've got to be honest, if you read my comment, Cleary, I was like, don't do it, don't. Oh, he's already done it. Oh. So check it out, Cleary. Thank you very much for the super chat. So Master B, yeah, I'm there.
All right. Well, Bev bought Dr. Becky's book, and it says Space, 10 Things You Should Know. 14 billion years for people short on time. Interesting.
Oh,
So it got on sale, and if you go to the first page of the preface, it starts right there. The wondrous thing about science is that nobody knows the right answer. But now, why would you ever buy this book if that's the preface?
That's her opener. Are you having me on?
Yeah.
Should we dwell on this for a bit?
Just read it.
Hold on.
She's
Let's
telling you.
go
Go
on,
ahead,
chocolate, go on.
Nathan. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so wow, the opening gambit is everything in here is gonna be nonsense because we can't know anything with science.
Okay, so this is the preface from Dr. Becky. It's worth the read. It's very short. I put all of it there. But go to the last slide. This is our good old friend Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he says, when different experiments give you the same result, it is no longer subject to your opinion. That's the good thing about science. It's true whether or not you believe in it. That's why it works. Those two have some problems to work out.
Right, should we correct Dr. Becky?
Sure.
well,
Please.
it's not the most outrageous thing she said, you know.
Hold on.
I think it was very smart what she said.
So
What's
she's
the name of the book?
made an error.
What's the name of it?
She's made an error on,
Space, 10 things you should know.
made an error on the
It is
second
Things
word.
you should know about the second law of thermodynamics violation. Copy that.
What she said there completely exonerates her from everything. What she said there means that, like, oh, well, you know as much as I do because it's all a big mystery. That's basically what she said. And that way, so she can't be held to task on anything she's wrong.
Oh,
wrong
yes,
about
she
after
can.
that.
Yes, she can, and she will when I get a pause in the conversation. Yeah,
Okay,
she can. And she will be.
Go ahead.
Right here,
Have
right
at
now.
it, Nathan.
Okay, couple of things. Second word, wondrous. No. Science is an empirical method. It takes the wondering out of it. That's the point. It's an empirical method, Becky. I hesitate to call you doctor. So from now on, like Professor Phil Bell, just Phil. So, Becky, wondrous, no. Empirical, yes. Wrong in the second word. Science, that would be the establishment of cause and effect based on a hypothesis. That would be your presumption of a cause for a phenomena you observed in nature, yet to be validated. It will be validated upon experimentation. That would be you varying and manipulating the thing you think causes the effect to establish if it does or does not cause the effect. If it does, you have empirically, no wondering anymore, Becky, no wondering at all, empirically validated that which you assumed caused the effect as the cause of the effect. Science is empirical. If it wasn't, nobody would do it. Now, unfortunately, Becky's a pretender clown, a muppet, a pseudo-scientist who hasn't got the vaguest clue what science actually is. She thinks it's wondrous. Well, I'm telling her it's empirical. You complete clown.
Well, she also stated a while ago, in a very curious moment, that she figured out that everything contradicts everything, but that's a good thing. Remember that?
It gets better, Arwen. The second paragraph starts with, science is all about posing the questions to which nobody knows the answers yet.
Wondrous.
No, science is
Don't
about...
forget, though, this is
No.
This is what astronomers do. They vary location, which means I can go over here and re-observe something in a different location, and I can wait for the clock to change in a different position, and I'm manipulating and varying stuff. Come on now. You guys don't understand this?
I'd just like to say, what I said about her being smart about what she said, what I meant by that is that obviously Nathan is correct, but what I meant by that is that any claim she makes about the sky, if she's disproven on it, she's already exonerated herself.
No, she hasn't. All she's done is declared her misapprehensions about what she thinks science is. Science is all about posing the question to which, I can't read, that's too dark, nobody knows the answer yet. Convincing people, again, no. There's no convincing required if you have empirical scientific evidence. You don't need conviction when you've got empirical data. Your conviction's irrelevant, Becky. Convincing people that there is a right answer, well, if you've got experimental validity, you have an empirical cause. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to tell them it's right. It is right. It's been validated scientifically. Theory is based on scientific experimentation, not about what you've convinced people's right. You build a theory after you do experimentation. That's what a scientific theory is, Becky. You and your colloquial use of this word when you're prefacing what science is an absolutely outrageous statement to make. You should be stripped of all accreditation. Theory is based on scientific validity, which is acquired by systematic experimentation based on a hypothesis after observing natural phenomena for which you want to acquire the cause of it. Once you've acquired the cause of it, you can build a theory. She's clueless.
They all are.
I'm sure she'll get right on that after checking her emails to iTunes.
There's more pages. I take it there's more outrageous stuff for me to get my blood boiling about in this little
Yes.
book. What's the next page?
Yes. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff here.
Was there something on the next page, or was that it?
Well, let me go on here. Talking in the same one, science is all about posing the questions to which nobody knows the answers yet. Convincing people that there is a right answer. Okay. Based on evidence and facts you, your colleagues, and your predecessors have collected to build a theory of the previously unexplained is the crucial bit. This means that science moves quickly, with theories maturing and sometimes even boomeranging as more evidence comes to light.
Okay, so evidence in the scientific community does not just come to light. It doesn't come from discussion, peer review, or the opinions of people who think like Becky. They are scientists. They certainly don't move quickly. The only time they move quickly is when you validate that which you assumed is your cause as the cause. Then they happen instantaneously because you've validated that which you assumed. However, it still requires systematic experimentation to validate that which has been validated in your experiment. So it requires other people to follow in your footsteps, do as you have done with your experiment, and validate the cause as the cause. That's not a quick process. Far from it. Now, if you're making up stories and sitting around monitoring your iTunes and email claiming to be doing science, you can discuss something about the sky, come up with a story in no time, and call it science. It isn't. The process, however, is an empirical process you can utilise to form theory if you have scientific validity to that which you have validated with experiments. Moving on.
Yeah, well, let me keep reading because it gets good. I therefore might have misled you, reader, by saying the theories and facts outlined in this book are the 10 things you should know about space. They are all considered successes now, but who knows how they shall be perceived in 50 years. Perhaps our current theory of dark matter will be scoffed at by future generations, akin, here it comes, to our current disbelief that learned minds once thought the Earth was at the center of the universe or the atom could be split. Yet that doesn't mean we shouldn't treasure this knowledge now and wonders of our world that it lays here.
Oh, she just thinks that the dark matter theory is a scientific theory. Oh, well, Becky, let me be the first to correct you. That's absolutely not a scientific theory. It has not gone through the scientific method. The most you can do is observe phenomena. Not a theory. This is not science.
They take liberty with the word science and make it mean something it's not.
No. By using the word science when they have not adhered to the scientific method, there is a qualification and definition for that very thing. That is, by definition, pseudoscience. You're a pseudoscientist, Becky.
Yep. There's a lot more, but I think that's enough. I mean, everything else kills her.
Isn't Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity considered by mainstream science as an actual theory?
What, pseudo-Ramonian force space, you mean?
I'm just saying it, throwing the cat amongst the pigeons, because it is, and that's the problem. These things that aren't proper scientific theories are being labelled as.
No, they're not. No, it's labelled pseudo-Ramonian force space. It's very much labelled and categorised as pseudo. Precisely what it is.
But if you're somebody on the outside who doesn't know much about science, and you're told that Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity is a scientific theory, you're not going to know any difference between that and something that is validated.
You don't need the word scientific, you just say the word theory like Becky's done, claiming to be a scientist, and people believe you've got empirical evidence because you were taught in 5th grade what the scientific method entailed and what it produced. That would be empirical data. So when someone like Becky hijacks this terminology as the pseudoscientist that she is and says that she's got a theory, people automatically assume that she's got some sort of empirical evidence for what she claims. With this fast-moving, fast pace of people talking to each other to come up with their theories, which aren't scientific. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Not that I'm aware of.
Nope. Not even close.
Well, if it's
Not unless the
presupposed,
Earth is
we
only-
could just imagine anything in the core of the Earth, right? It's presupposed. It's up to your imagination.
No, it's up to evidence. Any evidence. Scientific, preferably.
No, you're asking too much.
Unless it only goes down 8 miles.
Too chocolate. When you said imagination, remind me of that Willy Wonka song.
Which one?
Imagination.
Okay, copy that.
And you'll see. That's the one, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
I don't remember.
That's
It's
a great
been a while.
song. It's a great song for the heliocentric people.
Tim Weiler. Yeah, brilliant.
Lick a schnozberry, tastes like a schnozberry. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure, that would be the stuff we're all breathing, without the necessary antecedent of a container. That would be the thing that gas wants to fill.
No.
Zero evidence of that.
Nope.
That concludes the housekeeping. The massive...
They're all messed up.
Go on. Go on, 10th man.
No, I said they're all messed up. They take words and change the actual meaning of it to fit any situation they're in. And they go from one lecture to another lecture with someone who's had a PhD before them and a couple of other degrees probably, and sit there and like a sponge. Ooh, dark matter. Ooh, quasars. Ooh, gas giants existing in the vacuum of space. They don't even question it. Like, how does that work with the second law of thermodynamics? I mean, they're not thinking. They're just puppets.
I was talking in the pre-show about that
No,
guy. Go on, Brian.
no, it's okay, Nathan. I'll talk in a minute.
I was
Thanks.
going to say, I was talking in the pre-show about this guy I've recently come across called Thunderfoot, who goes around debunking outrageous claims of manufacturers and reviewers about products that they sell. And he was describing in one of his videos about a vacuum-powered, like, tumble dryer. And he was utilising a picture that was from one of the Apollo missions, Earthrise. Fairly common picture. People know what I'm talking about. If you don't, oh well. Anyway, he's got that picture up and he explains how NASA had worked out the thermodynamic requirements for the men travelling to the moon. Yeah? So he's bragging about this with this picture of Earthrise. And in the background, obviously, you've got Earth, which is claimed to be a ball with high pressure gas on the outside of it, sat in a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum from that vantage point, with the gas not dissipating into the space. So my comment to Thunderfoot was, isn't it interesting how we can calculate the thermodynamic calculate the thermodynamic needs of a person who will be travelling to the sky vacuum, and yet in the picture, Earth itself is violating the second law of thermodynamics. Isn't that interesting?
Did you get a response?
I don't know. I was talking about it, as I said in the pre-show. I've been thinking for a while, based on two things. First is the revelation that who is they? They is anybody who perpetuates this nonsense about us being on a ball flying through a vacuum in violation of natural law, spinning with no evidence of such, a claim that we can see Coriolis effect when we don't turn underneath anything that's in the air. So all of this stuff that we appreciate is punted by General Joe Bloggs Normie. Now, in the case of this dude Thunderfoot, he's actually out there aggressively debunking people who make up just so stories about products. Now, the globe's just a product being sold to you. It's also a religion. You probably don't appreciate that if you're on the side that thinks you're on a globe. Nevertheless, it's just a product being punted to you for reasons that you may not or may not appreciate. In any event, this dude who's saying, look at this guy, he called Unbox Therapy, I quote, the most vapid shill on YouTube. So clearly he's out there calling people shills, right? So he's aggressively attacking people for making up stories, whilst punting the rhetoric the priests of heliocentrism have given him about a sky vacuum, second law of thermodynamics violation, gas that's not filling it, whilst demonstrating to a guy with a vacuum dryer that that's not really how vacuums work. Oh, right, mate. But they work like that with Earth in space, do they? No, mate, that violates natural law, and I feel that it's appropriate for someone like him, specifically him. I can't think of any other examples, which is why I've put this out to my members, and if you're watching this on Tuesday, the people on Nathan Oakley channel. It's like, who else is there out there like this? Because we can't just go after Joe Normie, who talks about space. That's totally unreasonable. All right, they're just like the worker ants, if you like, in this scheme. I'm not saying people are like worker ants. I'm just saying in the scheme of the brainwashing of heliocentrism, they don't know any better. You know, so therefore it's unreasonable to go after that guy and say, look, you're just punting the rhetoric of this religion we've all been poisoned with. They'll go, whoa, 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 what have I done? All I did was say that the moon looks pretty and isn't it nice in the vacuum up there? What, you know what I mean? Whereas this guy's totally different. Thunderfoot is aggressively calling people out for making up stories. Oh, right. Well, he'll get praised for that, won't he? Well, when we point out the stories that you've all been lied to about, in this case your religion, you'll fight us. Well, I think it's time we expose this to the masses with somebody who's claiming to be a scientist. That would be Thunderfoot, even though he just does maths. But that aside, he seems like a very reasonable guy. And he understands when he's debunking the nonsense of people's claims about vacuums, how thermodynamic laws are applied. So, hopefully, if I'm carefully pointing out to him that no, your example actually includes a second law of thermodynamics violation, he might widen his eyes a little. He might not. He might just get very aggressive with me like the people he's dealing with when they're flogging their bullshit.
It's go on, Tent, I'll talk in a second.
No, that's it. I'm just agreeing. Go on.
Thanks. No, what I see it as is what I've been calling it privately to myself lately is it's just a tradition of pre-assumption that seems to be going on. It's a tradition of pre-assumption that started with some heavy fantasy suggestion, you know, and maybes, and that became a pre-assumed fact. without validation. And this is what's going on. And what Nathan is talking about, I hear, because I listen to stuff outside of Flat Earth, just for entertainment purposes. And one of the things I listen to is this channel, Bedtime Stories, I think is the name of it. And they do a really, really good job of telling, let's just say, scary stories or conspiracy stories or something kind of like, could be anything, could be a ghost on a ship story or anything, right? And I listen to this stuff and it kind of takes my mind off of things and helps me go asleep. But this channel, the guy who was narrating it, I noticed with him and I noticed with other channels I listen to and other things on television, they don't speak about worldwide anymore or across the world or the whole world. They are constantly, like trying to insert the word globe and the word global. And I noticed just because this is just referencing this channel as I listened to it only earlier, it's like they can't stop adding in the word global at the moment, and it's a pure, it's totally a response to us. They can't. You hear it on the news, you hear it in just YouTube media. You see it written down anywhere if you're reading and they're speaking about the world. It's always globe or global. They never say worldwide or across the world or the whole world anymore. It's always the word globe and global. You never see it or hear it any different anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you, that's the case, but that's definitely not as a reaction or consequence of us. That's just how the vernacular of the general populace is utilised. It doesn't mean that it's reacting to us.
Well, in an indirect way, it may be a general response tactic in the sense that, yeah, when we got so close with the truth, so up and close to the technicals with what we've done, and not just us here, but just the flat earthers, but flat earth debates a lot too, and people that surround us, they probably see no other choice than to try and just viscerally place the word globe as an essential core tool, a core fragment of language, to like put it everywhere, so that even if you don't think about it, it just like globe becomes a sub-language. Like, this is stage where we use globe a lot.
Perfect. Sub-language. We talked about this in the pre-show too. Subliminal messaging. So yeah, we've come full circle now. I mean, exactly, but you've just used the word sub in a slightly different context. But yeah, subliminal messaging. In other words, sticking globes absolutely everywhere. And it's not that it's happened as a consequence. It was always like that. You just notice it now. We notice it now.
But it is increasing, though. You know, I can feel it too, what Brian said. It is being pushed a little bit extra, because there were people that just do like to use as many different types of descriptions when they use language. But it seems to become a more narrow pick. And globe is preferred by a lot of people in media to use that terminologies that have that in it. More than say 10 years ago.
Well, it's on every header under each show. They're telling you that the show is talking about some old ancient belief of flat Earth. Be careful.
Yeah, I have to say again, in my defence and Armin's defence, that I literally, I have to question myself: am I being paranoid about it? And I do, but I hear them emphasising this word. The audio level goes slightly up when they get in the middle of a sentence and they use the word globe, and it comes blah 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 globe or global, and then they go back to the same, let's just say, the same audio level they were on, but they emphasise the word globe. It's emphasised.
You're gonna have to back that, man. As much as I want to believe you, if you can prove that to me, then I'll believe you.
Well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll put it into the audio software I have and see if I can see a noticeable difference when they say that word. Not a bad idea.
Well, I notice a difference. I notice that they call what they preach as scientific. And then I see, and what attracted me to this show, particularly this show, is that we are saying, well, let's get the words defined and let's see what the word science means. And then the housekeeping questions were a big deal for me at first, because I'm saying, man, those are really well thought out questions, and all you got to do is answer them, and then we live on the globe. But they can't answer them. So this channel, instead of being labeled flat earthers, as we always are, it should be labeled truth seekers, asking in proper context the questions that would prove a globe, but no glober has come on and answered those questions. I mean, they get a double whammy
any
from
question
the show
you want to
because
ask, and I'll give you a globe's proof.
Okay, I'll start.
Guys,
No
I've got a
worries.
question.
No worries, I'll start. So, given that to do geometry, you would require a measurement to a tangent point. If that tangent point cannot be seen and only exists in maths, how can you draw to it?
What? Say again?
I thought you could answer anything.
Well, yeah, I didn't understand the question.
Well then you're useless to us. If you're too thick to understand what I'm saying, I'll just kick you out, you stupid idiot. Try and pay more attention.
I understood it.
Yeah, I understood it. It was very carefully phrased. He just needed to start off with an obfuscation, given that the question he's avoided on 3 separate occasions of being here was delivered so concisely that he needed a bit of time to think, so he asked me to repeat it by declaring how stupid and he was by not being able to understand it. No worries. Did anybody else understand it concisely enough to be able to repeat?
Yeah, I think I could remember it. I think what you said exactly was that for us to be on a globe with a radius of 59 miles, that you'd have to be able to measure to an horizon, and that would mean that we would have to be able to create a tangent to this horizon, but we'd have to be able to see the horizon to actually create this tangent to the horizon.
That's correct. So my question was in regards to Rumpus's claim that we never see the geometric horizon, that it only exists in maths. And my question was, how can you measure it to it then? Fairly simple question. If you can't see it and it doesn't exist, how can you measure to it? Fairly simple question. He just needed a bit of time to think about it because you can't. The answer I'll give you. You can't measure to something you can't see and only exists in a mathematical model because it doesn't exist to measure to. That's a very real problem if you've got a fundamentalist religious sphere belief that requires a geometric physical sphere edge to be the horizon. Because currently you're all telling us you don't have one. So I would also ask me to repeat the question and say that made no sense, even though it was fairly concisely repeated back by Brian. He doesn't have an answer. He's been asked that question simultaneously over and over again every time he's been here for the last week. But every time I ask it normally, it gets obfuscated with him talking through Discord. That normally happens after a long, drawn-out questioning, with him admitting that we do not see the geometric horizon. Therefore, we cannot measure to it, as is claimed Al-Biruni did.
All game over, right there. It's only in a model, in a mathematical construct, and it doesn't exist in reality. So you don't have any proof of globe.
We don't need Rumpus anymore. Because what's he got? I can answer any question. So I concisely ask a question he has been asked no less than 3 times. That would be 3 separate occasions, not 3 times of asking. Probably in excess of 30 times of asking. But when I deliver it concisely with no audio chaos from him, he can't understand the question. So what use is he to us? He's thick. If you can't understand, okay. You can't understand a concisely delivered question that you've had 30 times previously. Okay, well then you're useless. You're too stupid to be here, Rumpus.
He sounds like Dr. Faulkner. He can answer any question until it's presented to him.
Well, clearly not. He just had a question presented and apparently it was too complicated for him to understand, so he couldn't answer it.
He doesn't want to answer it.
Well, I've asked him in excess of 30 times on 3 separate occasions. Now, previously, as I've just said, he talked through that. He wouldn't let me concisely deliver it. This time I have. It's been replayed, half a dozen times on all those different shows. They were all repeated at least once. So it's been delivered to the audience multiple times. But he can't understand the question? No, he just doesn't have an answer. You can't measure to something you can't see. It's just that simple. It's the end of the globe.
Nathan, I know I've been on your show when he's been here, and you've asked it in excess of 30 times. In fact, I have a note here Tuesday, the 19th of May, 2020, show 1169 at the 126 mark. Geometric horizon is the topic. Rumpus, quote unquote. It's not a visual one, but it is visible.
We do. We don't.
If this was a court situation, his solicitor would tell him, sorry, Neil, 1 second. If this was a court situation, his solicitor would tell him not to answer that, as it would incriminate him. Sorry, Neil.
I think they already
It's the Fifth
incriminated
Amendment.
themselves, saying we don't see a geometric horizon. We never asked them that. All we asked was, why is that horizon back there behind the second platform, further than 9 miles away? And all of a sudden, their response became, "Oh, because we don't see that other horizon you're asking about." Oh, really? Okay.
Hey, Chocolate, let's not forget how important it is. It was the very thing that was blocking the bottoms of boats.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem if it only existed math.
Well,
How
it's
does
a bit
math
of a-
block boats now?
Well, that's true too. But if they used to use the geometric horizon to block the bottom of boats, and now they say it doesn't, then what was blocking the bottom of boats?
We are not going to see the geometric horizon.
No one's claiming that we see physical geometry.
It's not a visual horizon.
Of course, what Mr. Oakley will say is that we presuppose what the Earth is, the shape of the Earth. Well, yes.
That doesn't get old.
I love that. Well, yes.
That's funny.
Yes, we presuppose, guys.
He's
What did you think
honest
we were
about
doing
that.
all this time, as you've been telling us for years we've been presupposing? It's a joke, man.
Everyone knows we're on a globe.
Well, if you can't accept what you see with your own eyes, you know, and what the all evidence points to, if you can't accept that, then you're going to have to pre-assume some other nonsense. There's no way out of it. That's, you know, it's a psychological thing.
Got one of the
This
clips.
group of people that we deal with is a very disingenuous lot of people. I mean, these are people who can't find their set of keys and saying,
Stop
"Where are
the
my set of
Presses
keys? I put them somewhere.
2.0,
Where are my set of keys?"
May
And
24th,
it's because it's so far
2020.
away, it looks so small.
We have
right?
the
They got-
intellectual elites over on Jose JG Retard Show doubling down on their thesis defense that evaporated water is not a gas.
Have you considered evaporation? According to Nathan Oakley and Quantum Racer, the current science is water evaporates and becomes gas.
I know. That's the dumbest statement I've ever heard, but yeah.
What do you call it, John?
I
call it gaseous.
I'm sorry,
A
I
gaseous
didn't
state,
know
not
that you were
gas.
joking.
So yeah, no, I'm not joking. They aren't joking. I am.
Globetard powers, activate. So we have the statement, water evaporates and becomes a gas, which elicits laughing and mocking from the entire retard panel. An outburst of laughter from Latonia Bailey, again, the newest member to the retard family. Pathetic from the Rhodes Scholar Brian Leakey. And Sean the Crackhead Hawkins calls it gaseous, a gaseous state, not a gas. And finally, the coup de grace from Professor Latent Unnatural Homoerotic Obsession with tapping on the whiteboard, Phil Belland, who responds to the claim water evaporates and becomes a gas with, "That is the dumbest statement I think I ever heard." So let's have a look-see. From their alma mater wiki, water vapor or aqueous vapor is the gaseous phase of water. From the American Chemical Society, water vapor is the most important greenhouse gas. From NASA, water vapor is also the most important greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. From NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, many greenhouse gases occur naturally in the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. From Science Direct, water vapor is the most important atmospheric trace gas. From Energy Education, University of Calgary, although invisible, water vapor is one component of the wet stream released. Water vapor exists in the atmosphere as an invisible gas. From Yale, Climate Connections, water vapor is one of the most important elements of the climate system, a greenhouse gas. In conclusion,
Okay, so the reason I've played that clip is because I was in the Uncut and After Show chat yesterday, and Phil Bell, who we just heard saying that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard after somebody declared that us saying water vapour is gas was stupid, that was what you heard. I'm going to play it again just so you can actually listen to what Prof. Phil Bell said, given that his response to me was to say, I never said that.
Different sciences, water evaporates and becomes gas.
I know. Statement I've ever heard, but yeah.
So that is the dumbest statement I have ever heard from a man who works in hydrology called Professor Phil Bell. He also lies and says he did not say that. So just want to clarify for the audience what a liar Prof. Phil Bell is. I'll also bring up him actually saying, I never said that. There it is, for the audience's benefit. I'll just make it a little bit bigger so you can all see precisely what Phil Bell, the liar, has said. Given that that was his statement, we have it recorded, we've played it several times. Now he denies any association with those complete bunch of buffoons who spent 3 days solid doubling down on their claim that water vapour is not gas. Now, Phil Bell was part of that little clan, and his statement that that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard while they all had a good laugh at us saying it is on record and now denied by him in the chat streams. Because they're all liars. Of course. It's all they can do.
So that's interesting that he says that he never said that, because we obviously just heard him say that. But then if he did say that, then does that mean his compadres were wrong about water vapor being a gas? Because he just says clearly in that statement that water vapor is a gas. So are they confused amongst themselves? What's going on here?
Yeah, that's why I asked him to give us clarity. If I'm mistaken, maybe when he said that's the dumbest statement he's ever heard, what he meant was the people around him are incredibly stupid, but maybe they weren't smart enough to realise he was pointing out how dumb they were. But nevertheless, even though he's part of the conversation, they're all having a good laugh about how stupid it is to assert that water vapour's gas. He's egging them along while they all laugh, saying that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, something he now denies. And says, no, of course I understood that water vapour's gas. Well, why the hell didn't you correct them all, you complete muppet? If that's the case, it seemed to me like you were agreeing with them, and I'm pretty sure the audience will agree with me.
Did you see the last one I just put in Master B?
What did you put in Master B? 60 seconds
Sean
left.
Hawkins' statement from chat.
Yeah, that was...
What does it say? Do you want to read it out? I've got it up for the audience. Feel free.
Wait, I gotta go back to it.
This water gas thing. Go on.
It says, this water gas thing is all they have on me, and I only thought that for a day or two. Nathan Oakley still can't do a simple meters to kilometers conversion. That was Sean Hawkins.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, as there will be an after show to follow. A massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
something vapor is not a
Yeah,
gas,
I thought that was
like that. And this is ages beforehand, before this happened.
Really?
I'm at the posting it to Master B several times. I posted it to you, Nathan, and I posted it to QOE a couple of times. But it's out there. This is weeks beforehand, so it's not something he just thought for a day or two. That's a load of rubbish.
There's somebody on here that was on that show.
So he said Atmo means vapor.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. 1 second.
Wow, interesting.
He was on that show. He just told me he was fighting against.
All right. Yeah, that's right. I was the one in that video who said, "What do you call it, Sean?" If you listen to that part again, I said, "What do you call it, Sean?" And he's like, "It's not a gas." And I was like, "Pathetic." Yeah. And he mentioned me by name too, but if he'd listened to a little bit more, he'd have heard me, on the front lines fighting these dummy. He put a version of that video out. Go ahead.
Who was that asked him that? Because I heard that, and that would have been me. So, so what do you call that then? If it's gaseous, but
yeah, I was like, what do you? Yeah, I was like, what do you call it, Sean? He's like, it's not a gas. It's not a gas. I'm like, pathetic, And I think Quantum thought it was. He thought that I was calling him pathetic or pathetic for thinking that it's not a gas.
Well, apparently they spent days laughing at us, but apparently they both conceded now that they were wrong about that. So,
if they spent days laughing about it, it must have been laughing gas, and they didn't even know it.
He was only wrong for a day or two.
I want to ask Nathan a question if he's there.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because I'm sick of hearing this, and I have to ask you, right? This is something I have to ask because I'm sick of hearing people say this on the board side. Would I be correct if I said there was 1,000 meters in a kilometer?
Yes.
Right, so you do know how many meters are in a kilometer then?
I made one slip of the tongue whilst talking to Alan. Very heated. That's it.
Yeah.
Did I double down on this for 3 days, saying you should divide when you should times, or whichever way round I got it? No.
But apparently they were laughing at us for stating something you learned in literally 3rd grade science, that it's water, liquid, solid, gas, and water vapor is a gas. But they laughed at us for that.
Exactly, Chocolate. When it comes to these sorts of pathetic arguments, I've got a pre-typed out thing on my iPad. Meanwhile, you do not have a geometric sphere edge horizon, or something to that effect. But basically, it's like, all right, the most recent video I saw on me was Nathan's stutter. It's like a 2-second clip where I trip over a word. And you're like, is this really the best you've got? Me tripping over a word once. Now, I would like to consider myself relatively articulate. It's not something I praise myself for. But I'm not, like, constantly stuttering. I don't have a stutter. But that's something that somebody's focused on in the hours and hours and hours of content. They've got, look, there you go, he trips over a word 2 or 3 times. Wow. That's the best they've got.
See, we can't make one mistake or misspeak or stutter. They just hold us to it, but they can make thousands.
Yeah.
Isn't that a fallacy? Isn't that a fallacy, though? Picking out one thing or picking out, would that be like a formal fallacy or ad-hom fallacy? Which would that be?
Well, Paula calls it majoring on the minors. Picking out some minor insignificant detail that's not really relevant to the argument while there's a bigger picture that's being completely ignored. Majoring on the minors. I don't know if it's a logical fallacy.
Or it could be called they have nothing.
Yeah, if you've got nothing, you can start critiquing the show, or me personally. Now, the whole me personally thing, after 4 or 5 years of this, I am totally impervious to it. In fact, recently, I've started encouraging it. So, again, I discussed this in the pre-show. So, on the pre-show, I was criticised for just being sat on my ass here. You don't do any work. And it's like, well, it is actually quite a lot of work. No, you don't do anything. It's not even your show. It's QE's show. And I'm like, why am I fighting this? So I was like, yeah, man, go forth and tell people about this. It's critical information. You need to go out and discuss this about this show with everyone. Tell them. Tell the world. Tell the people. You know what I mean? It's like, I've given up on
them all.
I mean, I don't know about you lot, but taking offence to the personal insults and attacks
advertise
we
the
get.
hell out of it.
Why not? You can have Seat of the Pants show.
Just saying that most of us here, especially on the G Plus panel, are totally impervious to the ad homs and insults. Now, as he came up on the show, Shaw Hawkins, recently we've had a poke at him. And like every bully you've ever encountered ever, he's a total crybaby. Immediately talking about how he's been victimised and bullied. Just like every single bully you ever come across, they're massive cowards. And the second they get a taste of their own medicine, they can't cope. They cry foul. It's absolutely pathetic. It's hilarious because they dish it out to us all day long. Because it's water off a duck's back to us, they don't realise what they're getting is exactly what they're giving out. They just go, oh, no, I'm being bullied. You're like, what? You're having a laugh, right?
And it's funny because they're crying from the chats. They're not even coming in to argue about it, to argue their points. Phil Bell has never been in here. Sean Hawkins has never been on here. But they're crying from the chat how, I never claimed water vapor is not gas. Meanwhile, live on audio saying, oh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Way to go.
And a bunch of
I
them
think what
laughed.
Paul was trying to say is they're attacking the person rather than the argument. He was looking for a fallacy, but that's just an ad hom, right?
Oh yeah, that's just an ad hom. If there's an argument being presented,
You can't. Sorry.
Yeah, only if there's an argument being
Bothers
presented.
me
So I
when you
say,
talk about your kids, Nathan.
yeah, or we talk about how the show's earning money. So I say, how can you measure a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, which is claimed to be a tangent point, if you can't see said geometric sphere-edge horizon? Oh my god, I just tripped over a word. Quick, edit it out. Anyway, my point is that that's an argument. Whereas a rebuttal about how I've stuttered over a word isn't a rebuttal, it's just an ad hominem attack against me, the man. It doesn't address the argument. Same applies to, oh, you're making money from the show, which we had at the end of last week when this argument, the same exact argument came up. And you make money from this? It's disgusting. Swear word, swear word.
Well, they don't realize that in the debate, your intent is based on all the things you've said in the history of that topic. I remember fluid and liquid, there was a mix-up there, but we all knew what you were trying to say.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So I'd say something like gas is not a fluid. Well, that's incorrect. You can describe gas as a fluid. What I meant to say was gas is not a liquid. But in the heat of battle, sometimes you'll substitute one word for the other. That's just the way it goes. Now, in the case of Coriolis effect, I don't do that because it's absolutely critical to get the words correct. The non-inertial spinning reference frame versus the inertial reference frame, you've got to get that right. So it's imperative that I get that right. When it comes to describing something else with the wrong word, it's half the time inconsequential to the point you're making. Just a slip of the tongue and error.
The thing about it is that they only have things like that to attack on. Whereas if we were to go and bring that back towards them, we'd have to go through so many major faults of theirs and things they've done and said that were wrong before we'd ever get to the silly stuff where they said the wrong word. Because like things like the clips where someone is saying vapor is not a gas, that's worth attacking because that's a statement. But if someone's just speaking and they threw in the wrong word in a sentence in the heat of it, I mean, how many serious faults would we have to go through of theirs? That's a constant wave of these things before we'd ever get to those small little things. All they've got with us most of the time is these stupid things, stupid gotcha nonsense.
Well, I remember one. Yeah. Shoe is a natural phenomenon, and then Brenda doubled down, tripled down, and still is saying shoe is a natural phenomenon.
Exactly. So with this whole gas thing, the fact that Sean, after spending 3 days laughing at us and ridiculing us, we suddenly turn the tables and go, right, okay, we're going to spend a little while ridiculing you. And they don't like it. They cry foul, they moan, they bleat, because they're, like I said earlier, complete cowards like most bullies. They've come here because they are suffering cognitive dissonance. And they want to take it out on us. That's all that's happening. Now, like I said earlier, it's water off a duck's back to most of us on the G Plus panel. Literally, we're impervious to it. Been doing it for years. You think telling me I'm a Dumbo is going to make me feel bad? No. You think telling me that I've made an error in something mathematical is going to make me feel bad? No.
I sleep like a baby. Don't worry about none of these clowns at all. Worried about their damn geometric horizon, which used to block boats, which is now only in math. Yeah, I sleep like a baby.
Exactly. Exactly.
I was told if I understand spot on their model.
Second time's a charm that Chocolate's made the overriding point here. It's only an ad hominem if you've got an argument. So why do we get ad hominems? Well, because we've got an argument. That's why.
Yep.
They've trained the world to ad homus. Well, you don't need to have people under the... Go on, whoever it is in Discord.
Sorry about that. Hey, can you hear me? Regarding Sean Hawkins, the other day they had a show, and he starts off with saying that somebody mentioned the lunar wave. I think it was Lemonbird, and he starts off with, "I've already debunked that." He says that Crow lives by an airport, and you can sit there and time the planes taking off, and goes on. And then I finally get a chance to drill him. I'm asking him all these questions, and I'm like, how do you know? Do you know where Crow lives? He's done blabbed a bunch of other shit to try and back up his argument, saying Crow's a flat earther and all this. Crow's never really even claimed flat Earth. Whether he is or not, who knows? So all this, and then in the end, he denied. He's like, I said, do you know where Crow lives? He's like, no. I'm like, then how do you know he lives by an airport? So that's a blatant lie. It's hard for me to believe anything Sean says, much less his mistake.
Well, that's right. They sit in the chat calling us liars all day long, again, because we've got an argument that they can't overcome. So it's much easier to just label us liars. And the whole world is trained to do this. And as I said, they don't get trained to do it with the people who claim Bigfoot's real. I don't want to start an argument about Bigfoot, but I'm saying that there's no necessity to train people in ridicule. The only reason to do that is because essentially it's a fallacious rebuttal for your general normie. Just ridicule this person if they ever discuss the subject. Well, that's only necessary because the subject that's being discussed actually has an argument behind it. So train them to immediately employ logical fallacy at a base level. Oh, these people are stupid. Ergo, it's perfectly acceptable to ridicule them regardless of what they say. Well, these types of people like Sean take that to an extreme. I mean, it's weird because I have a super chat just after the show had finished from Unitox Femu. It says, Sean, how can we call things in gaseous state? ... Shoe.
That would have been my question.
Projection.
Projection. If it's in a gaseous state, what is it that's in a gaseous state? What do you call that?
Yeah, gas. But the point is, they can make up any old nonsense, completely ridiculous while they're talking complete bollocks. And when we point that out and hold them to task for it, they cry foul and call us bullies. Literally.
Well, they say we're liars, but actually they're liars. It's called protection.
Of course. It's just the same as any basic example of any bully. The kid you knew at school that used to come up to you and rough you up and try and take your dinner money. Not that that was me. I generally kept my nose out of harm's way or I got expelled. Nevertheless, you have the guy coming up to you hassling you and then you punch him in the nose. And what's the first thing they do? They go to the teacher and tell on you. Because they're basically cowards. They'll rough you up. And if you go to the teacher, they'll encourage everyone around you to bully the shit out of you for going to the teacher. That's how it works. Right? But as soon as you lay a hand on them, they're immediately going to the head teacher. Because they're cowards.
I got a good story about bullies in school. When I was younger, I was really short. Obviously, I didn't, grow until my teens, but I was shorter than most kids in the grade school, and the bullies would always pick on me because I was small in stature, right? So I said, well, I can't beat them, so I made friends with the biggest guy on the schoolyard. He became my friend, and they left me alone.
I just used to punch them.
10th man, to be fair though, were you also wearing your small hat a lot?
The only thing I had was a big foot. That's it.
Just kidding.
I had quick hands. You weren't trying to come take my lunch money. And the one time that it did happen,
the point is
exactly what Nathan said. That
They
guy
generally
got
don't like
knocked
a taste
out,
of their own
That
medicine.
never happened.
and he got up and ran to the teacher and tried to get me in trouble. And my teacher was like, "No, he's an honor roll student. He doesn't do shit like that." So we all know about you. So who am I going to believe in this part of the story? And I just looked at him like, "There you go. Thank you. Take care now. Bye bye then."
So how many KOs did you have in grade school, Chocolate?
Just that one.
Oh.
I didn't have too many people bother me after that.
Well, you know what's interesting is that anyone who has been on the show long enough or is someone in chat listening realizes that the toughest job is the flat earth side, because what we have to do is get everything right. We have to define the words that they're using on the ball side. Then we got to pose them in good questions, and we've got to break down all the errors when we see them. All they do is go with, as Nathan's always said, 99% or 95% of the Western world believes what they believe, but no one could defend it. They absolutely cannot defend what they believe. So we come here, and the omen is on us because we have to be right because we're fighting the majority of people's beliefs. So we have to have proof.
They always have
behind the
to
statistical
I'd like to add one thing before I go real quick, guys. Before I go, I mean, I've critiqued about Sean on Jose's show, but I will give him this, though. He lets me get in my argument and all that, man. What is the argument? Yesterday they were arguing about the sun not changing size. What is that? What does that prove to you?
Okay, so that argument breaks down as follows. They're asking you, why does the not actual size of the sun not change its not actual size as it moves from its not actual location? So the question they'll ask you, why does the angular size of the sun not change throughout the day? Angular size is apparent size, what we argue the curve math should include because it's perspective based. The angle of things that we do know the size of reduces as they get further away. Now, why does the not actual size, that would be angular size of the sun, not change in not actual size as it moves from its refracted, according to them, not actual position? Who cares? That would be my answer. How's that sound?
That's a great answer, man. I was also thinking, like, they always bring up the filters. And I'm thinking, what about a sundog? What do you see, two little white spots instead of one big white spot or white circle in the middle? I mean, but that's a great argument.
Yeah, it's not
What is the
actual
sun?
size. I can only credit
What
QE as he's
is
just had one of your arguments I had to break down. Why does the not actual size of the sun not change in not actual size as it moves from its not actual position? Was something that was posed to somebody by Sean Hawkins, I believe. QE. Good to have you, by the way.
Good morning.
Morning.
QE.
John. But yeah, I remember me 4 years ago, now that you're talking about that non-actual size change of this, the sun and all that, I brought that up very early on as my argument for a holographic nature, remember? And then you were all getting all very confused at me and even thought that it might have been controlled opposition after all. Remember all that?
I don't think that would have been me. That might have been Anthony Riley.
Well, it was also on the debates and all that. So
You were saying what?
I was saying, like, no, hold on. The ballers, or I'm sorry, the discers at the time, the flat earthers were arguing, oh, the sun is going over the earth. It's going into the distance, see? And then I was like, no, it's not changing angular size because I think it's not a physical object in a literal position anywhere. And everybody was like, what? Why are you helping the ballers? No, we have to imagine how it's going into the distance over the disc. Yeah.
Is Brian Leakey still there? Brian, are you still there? Oh.
Who?
Brian that was just speaking there a minute ago.
Brian.
Brian, who was speaking.
Yeah, he is.
He's
yeah.
gone, is he?
No, he's still here.
All right. For Brian.
So
listen, when they say to you that the sun is not changing angular size, okay, even though this claim doesn't mean anything, and what Nathan said to you is the most relevant thing you could have heard about it, but what's important to know is their claim is actually incorrect. You can get Wolfie 6020's video of the sun with his solar filter, and the sun actually does change size, angular size, as it moves towards the horizon. If you go to a channel called Scientism.com, I think his name of it, on YouTube, he actually done a video on it. It's a 4 or 5 minute video. So the claim that the sun is not changing angular size is not correct, even with a solar filter. That's just rubbish they keep pumping out there. The same way as they pump out other rubbish. It doesn't matter if it does or doesn't. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is it actually doesn't. So their claim is incorrect. So if you go to Scientism.com.
Okay.
You get this from me every time. I'm really sorry to do this to you, Brian. But that's just what they want. They want you to argue about whether or not the claim is correct, because every time you are arguing about this claim, you're opening the floodgates to them to beg the question about what a sphere Earth does, and assert, with the begging the question fallacy, how the sphere Earth operates, whilst defending your claim that it does or doesn't change in not actual size throughout the day as it moves from its not actual position. So the idea is, get whoever you're opposing, us, the flat earthers, we're in the opposition position when this claim is made or this question is posed, to discuss the whys and wherefores of the claim, because that claim isn't the point in the argument. The point in the argument is to argue Earth's sphere in a vacuum, and they'll be begging that question the entire time you're having that argument.
I understand that, Nathan, and you're correct. And I wouldn't go and get the video myself. I'm just saying to Brian, if they keep on throwing this at him, okay, that he can actually get that video and just put a spanner in the works, because their claim is still incorrect. Now, I wouldn't argue for it that way, but their claim is still incorrect because it does change angular size.
Okay, let me try again.
What does that prove?
Let's try again. One more attempt.
Trajectory-based growing smaller. Okay.
Let me just try one more attempt. Etvos effect. Right, so you have an affirming the consequent. If Earth is a sphere, then you will observe the Etvos effect. We observe the Etvos effect, therefore the Earth is a sphere. Now, the idea behind that affirming the consequent is to argue about the Q statement, to argue about Etvos effect, how it functions, what it does, whether it's legitimate or not. Because the whole time you're arguing about the Q statement, the if P statement is prevalent in the argument arena. That's my point. And you could say, no, the assertion of Etvos effect is incorrect. This doesn't happen. If you move, you don't see the difference in weight. The calibration of the scales, blah, blah, blah. Irrelevant. The whole point of the structure of the argument is to get you to beg the question of P. If the Earth is a sphere, we will observe Etvos effect. Or if the Earth is spinning, we will observe Etvos effect. So long as that P statement is the prevalent statement in the argument, and in this instance, it is ultimately about begging the question first and arguing about what the sun does second. So long as you're arguing about what the sun does or does not do, you're begging the question of what a sphere Earth is doing to that sun.
I don't disagree with that at all. That's why exactly I'd argue it the same way as you argue it. I would argue it the
I like
same way.
I like Brian. I mean, you got to beg the question almost when you're over there to even debate. But I like Nathan's answer better. But yeah, I'd have to. But that would be helpful. But Brian, I'm going to give you brilliant video on the ball Earth with the geodetic survey the other day. Brilliant, bro.
Yeah, I'll contribute to that shit sandwich. Yeah, wonderful job. I am in your debt, Brian, in this regard for that information. I'm definitely in your debt. However, to the guy who just gave him those props, no, you don't have to beg the question just to argue with them.
I mean, I'm talking about.
When I asked Rumpus about his acquisition of the geometric position he can't see, he started off his explanation saying, well, the sphere's got lots of tangent points. Now, that's a very subtle begging of the question that I immediately picked up on and went, hang on a second. I'm asking you about whether or not we can measure a point that we can't see. And you're immediately begging the question of all these tangent points we've got on the ground we're standing on. Now, that was his opener. To beg the question immediately, set the premise for the argument to be with a sphere that's got lots of tangent points drawn to it already. Now, had I have allowed him to do that, we'd all be discussing about those presupposed tangent points that we've definitely already got. Well, no! They begged the question immediately so that the premise is set for you to argue in an arena that begs the question of a sphere. It's the most prevalent trick they have. I'll keep crediting Validation Boy for this, and I'll keep crediting him. Every single assertion that is claimed to prove the Earth is a sphere will start with the assumption you're on a sphere. Now, they know that, the people who argue competently, and they also know that the way you get it in under the radar is do it immediately. As soon as you start your position, beg the question immediately. Hopefully very quickly so no one notices. No, you've got to spot that. The way to win isn't to let, as soon as you're into begging the question in your argument, in this case debunking Etvos effect or anything else that's a Q statement, you're losing immediately. Same goes for the curve calculator. Well, is the curve calculator giving us an accurate account of how much should be blocked by a sphere? You're into begging the question, you've lost immediately. So recognising where they beg the question and catching them immediately, their only defence to that is to say things like, I'm not getting a chance to speak. You're interrupting me while you point out the demolition of my argument because I begged the question. That's the only defence they'll have to that, because you're pointing out how they've assumed their outcome, a logical fallacy. So you can be damn sure that that'll be obfuscated with a lot of, oh no, I'm being interrupted because my first statement uses fallacy.
You got it, Nathan. Did everyone listen to that? He is exactly on point.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's very, very concise.
Cut him off at the knee.
Dude, it is so funny, man, because they get all this practice in wherever they're debating. I'm over there debating on Jose's channel and and a couple other channels, and they're getting in all this practice and debating with their arguments and all that, and then they come to Nathan's and get chopped off at the knees because they are having to presuppose that. It's funny sometimes. But QE, since you're here, yeah, man, I'm Brian Leak, and I'm the guy in the background of that video. I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to keep it up, that's fine. If you want to edit it, that's fine too. But when Sean said that water vapor doesn't turn into a gas, I said, well, what do you call it? I'm the one in the background saying, what do you call it? And then he's like, it ain't a gas. I'm like, pathetic. I was talking about he's pathetic. Just say.
Right. Yeah, I misidentified you. There's so many crayon munchers over there. I misidentified. It's not a video anyway. It's only a little audio clip.
Yeah, Phil Bell now denies that
I'll take one for the team anyway, because the point was.
No, go on. I interrupted you. Sorry.
Anyway.
You're chopping.
No, I was saying,
you need to get your mic fixed. You need to get your mic fixed, dude.
Roger that.
Who was? Oh.
Go on, Chocolate.
No, with that video or that audio, who is the lady that laughed all loud and like she knew what's up? Like who is she?
Bailey.
Is she like a new Jose retard show girl?
She's around a few weeks. Latonya Bailey is her name.
She's the latest. Did she also realized how she was wrong in her little
I don't think I've heard her concede anything yet. She's very condescending.
Now that Professor Phil Bell said, "Oh, I've never said that," and Sean Hawkins said, "Well, I only thought that for a day or two," which is hilarious. You saw that, John? Did I show that?
Only a day or two?
You don't realize that you don't think that at all if you're in this discussion. You just exposed yourself as a crackhead, by the way. Fucking clown.
That's something you should have lied.
Yeah. And when I read that, I was like, he thought that for a day or two when in third grade? Because they taught you in fourth grade that water vapor's gas.
You forgot. Come on.
You forgot. Oh.
That's really...
So the whole panel there forgot, and we're just laughing at the silly flat earthers who think water vapor is a gas. Right.
And that was right after they taught us that water is level, seeks and finds its level when undisturbed.
They only thought that for a year or two.
You're right, Rakia. That's exactly right. That's one of my very earliest memories of schooling. So I think it was like the second year of being in a proper school, primary school we call it here, and they presented us with a piece of paper, and it had all these different bottles and glasses drawn on it, and they asked us to draw the water level in it. So, like I say, one of my very earliest memories.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how could he say, "Oh, I only thought that for a day or two"? What?
And when it got really, complex later in the year of third grade, they taught us about gas pressure needing a container.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I remember that too. that was a little bit later, but yes, exactly. They taught us all of these principles, They taught us that science was empirical. They told us the whole lot. Then you venture into the real world and you get people like Dr. Becky saying that science, how did she phrase it, is mysterious. Let's go and bring it up. I don't want to misquote her opener. Get it up.
Was it something in the line of science is a paradox? Or?
No, it starts off with the wondrous thing about science is that nobody knows the right answer.
Right.
I lost my rag.
Planning on getting
lost my rag on the live
horror book.
Said I lost my rag on the live show, QE. Just so irritating. Within 2 words of her opening paragraph, the wondrous thing about science. No. The empirical nature of science is that it validates a cause if you guess correctly. That's what it should start with. Not the wondrous thing is it nobody knows the right answer. Nobody would do it then.
The wondrous thing about ignorance is no one knows the answer.
To be fair, pseudoscience can be pretty wondrous.
Did you play the latest clip? I got the updated version. If you played the latest one, you are gonna bust out laughing at the end. If you want to play it, it's again M. Scott Veach.
Okay, let's play that out. I'll play the show out with that. You sent it me direct, didn't you, on yours?
No. Go to Ballbusters right now.
Okay,
This is the updated version.
Okay, got it.
The self-purported PhD M. Scott Veach, 20 June 2020.
Let's see something orbit the globe, Mr. Scott. Can you demonstrate that right now?
Show us a demonstration of it. Can you demonstrate it?
Yeah, can you do that?
Can you please demonstrate that, please?
Is that possible? Can you show that the Earth is a globe and something has orbited all the way around
Can you
it?
demonstrate it so that it were possible to orbit something? I want to see a demonstration showing that it does not happen.
So you lost again?
I can't show that either.
That's a fallacy, to be fair, Veach. He's saying it doesn't exist.
Oh,
You're claiming
Jesus Christ, guys. Jesus Christ, guys. Are you serious?
Yeah. Quite serious, Mr. PhD M. Scott Veach. And your feigned Mr. Magoo exasperations to the Lord and Savior ain't gonna help you here, son. You gotta be kidding me. He asked you to provide evidence or a demonstration of anything orbiting your fairy tale globe. You then, all non sequitur like, shift the burden of proof fallacy and ask him to demonstrate the non-existence of something? Really? What a riveting display of flexing your intellectual prowess. You're a certifiable booger-eating schmuck, Veach.
Okay, fine. We're talking about what are we talking about?
Yeah. And by the way,
Mr. Scott, when you decide to dance with the devil, you do not decide when the music stops, okay? So you made this choice. You decided to go along with the whole narrative of the space, my father's an astronaut narrative. So you're going to have to go through all of this until the day you die. You know, until the very end, this question will be asked of you to prove your claims, your wild, outrageous claims of space, vacuums next to gas pressure.
And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in the Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering stream audience for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!